to know the artist behind the epic melodies, songs, and beats. Celebrating the best new music from around the world. This is the A State of Trance podcast.
Hey, what's up? My name is Ruben Ronde. Welcome to a new A State of Trance podcast. With in the studio today, John Grant.
Hey, how's it going?
How are you doing, man?
I'm great. I just had the best lunch of my life, so I'm very well fed.
Amazing. All the way from LA.
Yeah.
In the studio today to talk about your album Drift. But before we're going to talk about that, we have to go back in time a little bit, I would say, to 2015 when you started John Grant. But I want to go a little bit further back because there's always a point, and I always like to start this podcast with that point, that you fell in love with dance music or with music in general. Do you still remember having that click in your head? Like,
I think the moment for me when I fell in love with dance music was very pivotal because up to that point, I really hated dance music, believe it or not. I was very much into Britpop and rock. And so I thought dance music was like, that's like for nerds or something. Me with my guitar, like, right. And so I was about 18 and I was building websites back then for some company. And I was using Winamp at the time for radio. And so one day I decided, I was like, I'm going to see what this sounds like there. And I saw that there was like this thing called A State of Trance that was streaming. So I clicked on it and I immediately was like, whoa, this is not really what I'm used to, but
these are no guitars.
Yeah, there's no guitars here, but it works really well while I'm trying to code or whatever. And it's helping me focus. So before I knew it, I was listening to it every single day for hours on end. And it became like literally a trance for me. Like I would be working and then listening to trance. And this is back in the era when, trance just had a very unique sound and, that's still very fond of me. So I would say that was like the pivotal moment for me when I discovered that I loved dance music.
So A State of Trance was a big part in it, or was the whole part?
It was the whole part, to be honest with you. I had never really listened to any other styles of dance music. I didn't like the first dance music I ever listened to was trance from Armin, believe it or not, from his show. So, it preceded anything from like house and techno. I mean, I discovered those things later on, but my entry point was trance. And I think it worked really well for me because I was already creating melodic music with guitars and stuff like that. So to me, it translated really well in the sense that, if I had listened to house back then or techno, I would have probably felt too soulless or mechanical, and trance had so much melody and emotion that really resonated with me specifically at that period of time. But then also the very driving drums that I fell in love with that, I always try to capture that in my own productions these days.
Yeah. And back in the days you were making websites and listening to A State of Trance, but on the side you were also having a band.
I was, yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so when I was about 18, I should probably backtrack because I grew up in Uruguay in South America, so I was there from 3 until 18. And then when I was 18, I moved to the States, and at that time, I was obviously discovering trance and stuff, but I had been a pretty big fan of bands like Joy Division, New Order, Depeche Mode, and so I was very much into like that world of synth pop, but then also goth music a little bit, and The Cure and the stuff like that. And I'd always had the dream of starting a band, where we played synths, kind of like Kraftwerk with like 4 guys on keyboards. And that's kind of how the band started originally, was just, like 3 or 4 of us playing with keyboards, and then eventually we incorporated a drummer. Which
was already sort of dance music.
It was, yeah.
And then you went to the States, you got into more rock music.
Exactly. Yeah. It was weird, like I think, the thing like about New Order that always inspired me was that they had that very electronic heavy sound, but at the same time they still had like live guitars and they had bass. And so that kind of really spoke to me. And they also had obviously Blue Monday and those types of things. So it was really cool to like see a band that had this, half and half, creating one of the most influential dance records of all time. At the same time on their live sets, they're also playing, some more guitar stuff, And so I just thought that was so cool. And so actually my band name kind of comes from, New Order and Joy Division, the New Division. Yeah. Even though I didn't really get the name from that, it was a book that was called The New Division of Labor. It was like an economics book that I had to take in college. And I saw that name and I was like, well, that's a great name for a band. Why hasn't anyone taken that? The New Division. Yeah. And so that's how the band started. And, the rest is history. But we did a lot of tours around the States, played Europe several times. And
so you were very successful with the band.
In that realm of music,
Yeah.
sure, yeah, it's a very niche world, indie electronic. But we had a lot of opportunities. Like we actually opened for Peter Hook and the Light. Peter Hook, the bass player from New Order. We also played for Bauhaus, so we got to open for a lot of our idols. So and over time, it was just one of those things that we just started developing a fan base, and I was the singer, producer, and songwriter. So it was it was kind of like accomplishing all my dreams on that front. But I always had this passion to still do something that was just fully dance music.
The itch. That's what
because I didn't want to just sing and be on stage. Like there's something weird about like being a front man, you're on stage and you're singing and you got to get the people excited and you feel kind of like a show monkey or something. And it's just weird. Like everyone's looking at you.
like a jester.
And they're like, oh, we love you, and it's like, I'm just up here singing songs, but okay, I'll entertain you and, I'll make it look cool. I always try to act like Liam Gallagher because he was like my idol growing up, like trying to do the shine, on stage with glasses. Shine. Yeah, I mean, I literally did that so much growing up because I was obsessed with Oasis that I almost developed.
And you went to them a few weeks ago in
I did
Buenos Aires.
in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. It was amazing. Never been to a show like that where the whole stadium is just vibrating. And I thought we were going to die at some point. Like this whole stadium's going to crash because, they're soccer fans, Oasis.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's like, River Plate Stadium, the most important probably sports, arena in Argentina. And then Oasis is there. And, the fans are just going ballistic. Like there's literally people jumping on top of each other. But it was such a great time. Like everybody was so nice to each other and it wasn't like a violent thing. It was just their passion is just, I saw them in LA, and it was just
different.
It was like them watching it was like, you would imagine Bob Dylan was playing. Everybody was like, oh yeah.
That's okay. That's nice.
And then in Argentina, they're just losing their minds,
And
and
I guess that's the pure passion that people have for life in general.
Well, that's how I grew up. You know, Argentina and Uruguay, very similar cultures. So I grew up in that environment. So to me, it was like this is where I wanted to see Oasis at, not in LA. Where everyone's like, shh, they're playing Wonderwall. I'm like, no, I want to jump up and down and like
sing along from the from here.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was. It was a dream come true. And the funny thing is that the friends that I went with were all from Uruguay as well. They were in my first band that I had when I was 13, and we did like a bunch of Oasis covers and had original music, and we toured Argentina and Brazil. That was like when I was like 13 until like 16 or 17. So it was great to see Oasis with
your friends,
with my early band, my first band from Uruguay. So it was a lot of fun and
very special.
Very special. Yeah.
Now,
it was
let's
very
dive
emotional.
back to the Winamp days, because you started listening to A State of Trance. You were making synthwave pop or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you decided to I want to start doing like proper dance music, 4 to the floor, up tempo dance music. Tell us about that process. Why did you switch into that lane? And also, how long did it take you before you were confident enough to release something?
I think it was a challenge. Like I remember I had the idea of like, I'm gonna try to make some music like this that was in that vein of like trance and progressive and stuff. And the first attempts were just really, really bad. Like I was relying completely on sample packs to build everything, like even the melodies. And I was like, what am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
I know how to write melodies. Like, why am I using everything? I think I was using those. What were those sample packs called?
Vengeance.
No. These are like pre-Vengeance. These were like Trance Essentials, something, volume 1, 2, 3. And they had a lot. And so I think what happened is that I was very curious about how those sounds were made. At that time, I was really just producing on hardware synths, right? Mm-hmm. And so with hardware synths, like analog ones, not like the JP 8000 and stuff like that, but like the actual hardware ones, it was hard to get those sounds. And so I was like, how do people make this kind of music? Because at that point I was recording everything manually. You know what I mean? I wasn't using FL Studio. I was like using Cubase, and I would record, a bass line going boom, boom,
and then
boom,
put
boom.
it as a sound.
I wasn't even using MIDI. I was just recording everything manually, which was like, so that's how, ignorant I was about how to do that stuff. And so I was like, I want to learn how people make these sounds. I want to learn, what the process is. And then I figured out, I saw someone use FL Studio to make this. I'm going to try doing that. So I learned how to use FL Studio. And then from there, it became, okay, so a lot of people get these kicks or these snares using sample packs.
Mm-hmm.
I need to find out what those sample packs are. And so I started discovering that world. And then little by little, I was, collecting sounds that would help me make, my first track. And I shared that first track with a friend. He's like, oh man, this is completely horrible. Like the mix is really bad, yada, yada.
That's great because in general, friends lie to you. Right?
Yeah.
The first productions, my friends were saying, oh, this is really cool.
Yeah.
And when I hear them now, like,
Yeah.
you guys were lying. This
He's a bunch
was
of
so
liars.
bad. It was so bad.
Yeah. So, him being honest like that really was helpful because it's what propelled me later on to take it as a challenge, Actually, I'll name who it was. I think it was David Sherlock, Freshly Squeezed Samples, dear friend.
Oh,
of mine.
yeah.
Yeah. Actually, the first track I played, Dave Raval, that's him and I. And he's just a hard ass. He's a perfectionist and he'll tell you how it is. He'll never lie to you. And so that really helped me a lot, figure out what I needed to work on and how to hone my craft. He also taught me how to sound design, amazing sound designer. And so with his help, I learned how to recreate sounds that I heard on records very quickly. And that was the big unlock was like, okay, I hear a track, from Ferry Corsten, or I hear this track from Armin or whatever. And I was like, okay, I know how to make that now because, these are the techniques that David taught me. And then from there, I started creating my own synth banks. I actually released a lot of the Freshly Squeezed Samples, banks for Spire, Silent, Massive, did a lot of those. And so by learning how to sound design, it sort of unlocked this like freedom to be able to, from there, learn how to like also design drums. And then once I learned how to design drums, so I started building up this arsenal of skills that took years to develop. It wasn't like overnight. It took like, maybe 5 or 7 years, honestly, before I felt really comfortable. And then 2015 was when I was like, okay, I'm going to try to produce a track. It's going to be called Dig Deep. I was like, here we go. It got signed to Alter Ego. And that first track was played on A State of Trance. And I was just floored because at that point I'd been listening to State of Trance for well over, let's say 8 years or something like that, and to have your first track.
It's like a full circle moment, I would say.
It was surreal because I just never dreamed that was even possible. Yeah. And it was also the first song of the episode. So Armin opened with Dig Deep. And that just completely blew my mind that A, I had what it took, B, that it was played on A State of Trance, which I never expected. The first hurdle was like, I've never had a track signed. So if I get a track signed, that's amazing. That's a big win. The second hurdle is, okay, is this going to be played on one of the best radio shows in the world for this music? And when both of those things happened, it was just like, okay, I guess I can do this. Now I got to figure out what my next tracks are going to sound like. And so that's how it, that really propelled me to have like a lot of confidence. And, ever since then, it was like, okay, this is something that I can actually feasibly do outside of New Division. Even as a hobby, I was happy with that. I wasn't really like trying to, pursue like a, full-time.
But before you were confident enough to send out a demo to Alter Ego, you worked on your skill sets
for
a long
time.
Years.
I would say before I ever sent them a demo, I'd probably worked on, 30 or 40 tracks that I just never sent to anyone because I just didn't think they were good enough. And then when I felt confident with that one, I was like, okay, I think it's time. I think this is, my moment to, put the well, I don't even know how they say the expression, but it was the time to put that out. And so, and I was just, so in other words, like if having that experience of obviously getting that ASOT feature, and having the track sign really gave me like a big fire in my belly. Like, this is what I want to do. I'm still doing New Division, by the way, even to this day, but I wanted to have a project that I felt proud of that represented my taste and my influences in dance music.
Yeah.
And it's evolved over time, obviously, but even the stuff that I was listening to back then still influences a lot of the decisions that I make in the studio today.
Yeah. And here we are, 10 years later.
Yep.
Your very first album called Drift. Now let's talk a little bit about it because first of all, the decision to make an album, I always ask people that are here in the studio to play music from an album or to release an album. Let's start with, why did you decide to release an album in a time where music is being consumed as a content rather than body of work, I would say?
Yeah, I think it was a conversation that I had with Ralph and Steven, Kai and Albert, and they were really, they've always been extremely supportive of everything that I've done since day one. And, if it wasn't for them suggesting and encouraging me to do it, I probably wouldn't do it. You know what I mean? I don't think there's a whole lot of...
just continue with releasing singles.
Just continue releasing singles because, there wouldn't have been a home for it anyways. If you're releasing on multiple labels, it's kind of hard to like curate all of those and then put them onto one body of work because of the different, logistics of that. But, with Euphonic, it's always been such a joy working with them because they really believe in what I do. And they're also very honest about, what they like and what they don't like that I send them. And so over the last year and a half, I've just been sending them a bunch of material. I was like, hey, this is a new song that I'm working on. What do you guys think about it? And then eventually it just became like, hey, like, why don't we put this all into an album? These are all songs that feel like they flow well together. There's a story and like a sonic narrative behind it. This would be a really great opportunity for us to be able to push that out there. And so, to me, it made sense to do it. And I think that a lot of people still consume music that way, even though dance music is notorious for being single heavy, which, makes sense given the actual goal of dance music, which is really meant to get people dancing on the dance floor, right? Like it's not really intended necessarily for people to be sitting in their living room at 3 p.m. But some people do appreciate that. And so I think that the people that are those types of listeners are going to appreciate any album from their favorite artist.
Yeah, I think it's funny to see because a few weeks ago we had Cold Blue in the studio, and we had some other artists lately also that release albums, and the approach to how to work on an album is so different with everybody, because you're just saying, basically what you're saying is that you are releasing singles, and along the line it's shaped into an album project.
Yep.
While you started, you didn't even know it was going to be an album project, but here we are. And then other people, they say, okay, I want to release an album summer 2026. My deadlines are here. I'm going to start now.
Well, you see, I've done that like 6 times for New Division. I've done 6 albums, a bunch of EPs. My experience with that is it's very draining. It's also very hard to...
Lots of pressure.
A lot of pressure to develop like a narrative, a story, an angle behind it, because PR is going to want to be like, oh, why did you write this album? It's like, well, I don't know. I just like the song.
A&Rs are chasing you like...
Yeah, they're like, did you do any drugs or did you have any sort of afflictions that made you write this? Like, no, I'm a very happy person. I just like to write good music.
They're like, oh, boring. We can't write about
exactly.
that.
So I'd have to make up something like, yeah, I drank too much that summer and, I developed a drinking problem, so use that.
Interesting.
Yeah, they literally want to know like your deepest and darkest secrets, and then don't tell if it's true or not. That's kind of how they operate. But with the way I approached this album specifically was, like you said, I wasn't in any way thinking about writing an album. I just knew that the songs were coming and that there was like this thread of these different types of sound palettes and BPMs and whatever that it just kind of lend itself to, a moment like that of an album. And I think that when you do it that way, there's less pressure and you can arrive at something that, if it works together as a whole, then that's great, But sometimes when you try to force something to be this ambiguous meaning or, it can also backfire as well, So I think that's why the album's called Drift as well, because there really isn't sort of like this anchoring theme around these songs other than it was a moment for me to sort of experiment with different BPMs, like I really hadn't ever written tracks at 121 as John Grant. It was always like 128 and whatever, right? So that was different, experimenting with that. And then also trying to do some stuff that was a bit more, like maybe in like that Prida style or whatever, like those types of things. So, it was like, drifting away from what had been done before and then doing this, effort as as an exercise in doing something different.
Did you use the album as an excuse to branch out in styles? Because it sounds like you were releasing singles on Euphonic. At a certain point, the guys from Keon Albert and Euphonic said, we want to do an album. You were like, hold my beer.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
never gonna turn down an album. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's a great format and it's a great way to digest music.
But would you made those tunes if you weren't on the album?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would have still made them for sure. You know, there were actually, to your point, there were some songs that I did write specifically once I knew that I was making an album. And so those were kind of like at the direction of like Ralph and Steven, like, hey, it'd be great if you could try out some stuff that was non-4/4 for the album, or some stuff that you haven't ever really done, so that you can have something unique, you know, and with like free of pressure of like, oh, this needs to be a dance floor hit. So there was that. And then I think that was really cool because you can kind of get into a zone of like, oh, I'm not worried about this, like fitting a live set, or about this.
It's very liberating.
It's very liberating. And I'm like, not worrying about like, oh, is this going to be played on that station or that show? Like, it's just fun. And like, that's why I like writing music in the first place, is because it actually genuinely is a fun thing for me to do. I don't go into the studio and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta go. And like, no, like I approach every session or whatever time I have when I'm in there, I'm genuinely excited. And if I'm not, I'm not working, you know?
Drifting.
I'm drifting. Exactly. So it's like, am I going to be in there having a good time, or, you know, and, you know, I'm also fortunate that I don't have to approach studio time as this thing like, well, if I don't write a hit, then I can't pay my rent. Right. Like, that's not my position. So there is something liberating about that as well. Is like, I don't have to worry about, you know, every song being somehow contributing to the bottom line of my, you know, financial situation or something. It's just pure joy and pure excitement and just, you know, and I think that's the best place, at least for me, to be able to write. You know, I think, you know, if I was in a hit factory having to churn out singles for Ariana Grande or Enrique Iglesias all day or something like that, I guess that would kind of get draining after a while. But yeah, it's just, to me, writing music is as fun as playing a video game for 12 hours, you know?
That's amazing. That's the goal that every producer has, I would say. To not burn out and just have fun in the studio. Is that the thing you think, because of the skill set that you developed for yourself, that you have less frustrations about finding ways how something should sound, that you already know what it needs to sound like?
Well, it's not so much knowing, because sometimes that's part of the challenge, right? Like, it doesn't mean that I know how to sound design or reverse engineer every single sound. And a lot of times, if I hear something that I like by another artist that I want to recreate, it's like that to me is sort of like a puzzle that I like solving. I find a lot of joy in being able to reverse engineer something that someone else did. So, you know, while I'd love to just produce and make tracks all day or whatever, I also will nerd out for like 2 hours if I have to on how to like reverse engineer that sound in Serum, or how do I get that kick pattern, or, you know, and again, like, my background is in sound design. So I worked on sample packs for 15 years at like Sample Magic and then at Splice. So I was sound designing all day, every day for, you know, 8 hours, 12 hours a day for
solving puzzles
all day. Yeah. That gets really old after a while. And you know, so like, once I stopped,
because you're not creating something new yourself.
Exactly. And then you're hearing all your stuff on other people's records. So, you know, I'd be at a grocery store and I'm like,
hey, I made that.
What the heck? Like, I just made that the other day. You know, it was actually really funny. Like, there was this one sample pack that I did. It's called like Massive Essentials or something like that. This top 40 song comes on inside of like a, you know, supermarket or whatever. And I go and Shazam it, because I'm like, I know this melody from somewhere. Like, this sounds really familiar. And then I Shazam it. And it's this, you know, top 40 artist, whatever. And, you know, I go on Spotify. They have like 3 billion streams or something from this song. And then I go back home and I'm like, I know that melody from somewhere. And so I go to the sample packs that I, you know, built out that year or whatever. And then I find the MIDIs.
Oh, no way.
And it was exactly the same notes by note. Obviously the sounds were different, but they used the exact MIDI that I had written for this song that had over 3 billion plays. And you know, and not that that's anything that stops me from doing sound design or whatever, but it's one of those things that gets a little bit deflating, where it's like, all right, you know, I need to stop sound designing. I just need to go and make my own music and do something that I'm proud of, that I can actually hear myself on Spotify. Albeit,
but it's still something to be proud of, to be honest.
Yeah, no, 100%.
You would probably have like a non-existent possibility that you would actually be in that studio creating a song like that.
Well, and that's the reality that every sound designer, faces and realizes at the end of the day that like you would never have the opportunity potentially to be in that room when that song gets written or whatever.
Yeah.
Also, the way those songs get written is very much a game of numbers, right? Like they probably went through 30 or 50 songs that week, and then that's the one that out of 10 producers got picked, and then it went on the album, right? So the likelihood of it ever happening are very, very slim.
Yeah, because people don't realize in general, like if you're not into the songwriting scene, that most of the songs that you would hear from Rihanna or whoever are actually songs written by other people, sung by other people, and they are being sold to labels, and then Rihanna would pick the song and
exactly
she would sing that exact same song.
Yeah, they write 12 songs a day. Yeah. And then out of those 12 songs, they come in and they're like, oh, we like one of those. And then all those songs that get thrown away, the writers can't do anything with them because it's part of their publishing deal where they can't, it belongs to whatever deal that they have. So in a way that, imagine writing 12 songs a day and you can't get credit for any of those songs. And crazy, you can't ever use them.
No.
And that's how a lot of people live in Hollywood. That's sort of like how the music industry out there works. But in my case, I don't have a publisher other than myself. And so I can write whatever I want all day and put it out however I want. And so, yeah, it's like to segue back, it was like, I wanted to stop doing so much sound design and just focus on creating music, creating tracks. And, I had kids as well, like a couple of years ago. So I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, Julian and Frankie. And when you have kids, you literally don't have a lot of time to do anything other than be a parent, work, sleep. So my time became very compartmentalized. I only had like gaps of like maybe
so you have to be very efficient in what you do.
How to be very efficient, right? So it's like if I only got like an hour or maybe 2 hours a day to do something, what am I really going to focus on melodically, rhythmically? I don't have time to fart around. I have to literally like be hyper focused about what I'm going to do that day. And so I just started like almost turning that into a game as well, right? Like a game of logistics. Okay, like, I got these songs that I need to get done for the album. Ralph is waiting for this, or, like, what am I going to do today that's going to actually make an impact, with the little amount of time I had. And so I realized like, oh, I don't have to spend 2 hours editing a song. I could spend, maybe 30 minutes writing a new idea. The next 30 minutes fixing the notes that I got sent over from whomever to fix this. The other 30 minutes, potentially doing a little bit of sound design. And so like, splitting it up that way helped me out a lot too, to get the album done quicker without.
So you changed your workflow as soon as you knew that you were going to release Drift, and your workflow changed 100%.
Yeah, because before I would just spend like 2 hours editing a song.
Like, okay, I'll just make this tune and let's see what happens.
Which, as you know, if you're in the studio for more than an hour or whatever, whether you're mixing or whatever, your ears start getting fatigued, you start losing vision. So you have to like mentally hack your brain in some sense so that you're divvying up those different tasks, which kind of use different parts of your brain. Like sometimes you have to be more rational in the studio. Sometimes you have to be more creative. Yeah. So when you get to do that, you're like using both sides of your brain a little bit.
How do you make sure that you can keep going for 8 hours then?
Well, I don't go for 8 hours. That's the whole thing, is I only really produce for at most 2 hours at a time.
Really?
Yeah, because I don't have time. I don't have time, Okay. I'm with my kids or I'm at work. And so I literally, at most I'll maybe go for 3 or 4 hours on a good night, after my kids go to bed. Like if it's 8 o'clock, that's usually when they go to bed, I might produce until midnight, but then that's going to screw me over the next morning. So it's like, I can't do that. And I can't wake up early because my kids wake up at 5:30 every day. So it's like, I only have that little pocket of time where I can
tell me, how did you produce an album? And in the meantime, you're also putting out singles with Enhanced or Argento or...
The trick is to have a lot of, well, remember how I said I have like those 30 minutes where I start ideas? So at the beginning of my sessions, it's like, I got 30 minutes to build a new idea. The next 30 minutes I have to edit existing idea. The next 30 minutes, if I'm going to like an hour and a half, I can go and either
arrange a project
or whatever. And so when you start doing that every day, you build a catalog of ideas that you can always bounce off of. So like if I go into the studio, I go to my iTunes, I'm like, I got like 50 ideas here. Which one do I want to work on? I'm going to work on that one. And then I'll have that one as like my, for the day. And so when you start doing that, you give yourself a lot of creative freedom to like not be, because I don't like being stuck on one song for a long time. I don't like to work on the same song every day that week. It's to me, it's boring. Maybe I'm too ADHD or something. I can't do it. But being able to have like a rotation of songs that I can open up, and sometimes I'll actually have like 4 or 5 Ableton sessions open at once. You know, because I'm on Windows, so you can actually have
multiple projects.
So I have like multiple ones there open. And a lot of times I'll be working on tracks all in the same key. So then like that's also quick for me to like, I can mix all 3 of these like kind of in the same ballpark. I can also like write a melody idea that would work for another one live or whatever. Like I'm also thinking about like the way I like to DJ is I like to DJ in 3s, you know, 3 songs that fit really well together in key. And then, so if I'm usually working on music, it's like I'm working on 3 ideas sort of at once, but at different times. And, so having that just allows you to, rotate through stuff and never get bored. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Do you put up timers for that, or how does it work?
I get tired, or I just want to go and eat or watch, you know.
I mean, like the 30 minutes.
Oh, yeah. I have timers for sure. So I'll just do it on my phone, or like on my computer, I have like little widgets. I just go 30 minutes and then it just, and then when it's 30 minutes is up, that's okay. I'm not going to do anymore, because if I do, I'm going to end up either messing it up or screwing it up. So it keeps it very fresh every time I go in, you know what I mean? And I also try to make notes as well, like very specific notes about things that went well in the session or things that I'm frustrated by. So like if I finish that
like a gratitude journal, basically.
It's it's like a gratitude journal. So, you know, I'll try to write, I mean, I do it on Evernote. I'm a big Evernote guy. So everything, my whole life is on Evernote. So if I ever die, like, you know, someone get my password and you'll know everything about me. But I go in there and I have like a journal of like all my tracks, all my songs, all the things that I'm happy about them, that I'm frustrated by. And I try to make the notes very, very minimal, right? I don't try to do a whole paragraph or anything. It's like, I don't like this kick, switch it out next day. And like, I already know that, but just writing it down, like, I don't have to worry about that, because I already...
Otherwise you have to remember, okay, I need to change.
I don't want to hold it. It's like writing it down, you just release it.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't need to worry about that. It's already on the notes. So I can worry about that tomorrow. Or, I really don't like how that hi-hat sounds. Or, like Estiva just did a really dope thing with his percussion on that track. How can I do that?
He's the best.
Exactly.
He's the best on the planet.
He's so good at like his
details,
his groove, and
oh my God,
his plucks.
I said it yesterday on my Twitch stream, and when I grow up, I want to be Estiva.
I love that.
Yeah, he's amazing. Now, 18 months, that's a long time. That's how long you worked on the album. Sort of, because you worked on the album already before you knew it was going to be an album. In those 18 months, a lot of things happen. You become a different person. How do you make sure that 18 months in, you still like this stuff, or you still want to incorporate the stuff from 18 months ago in the body of work that's Drift?
Yeah. That's a good question. For me, it was pretty easy. I just knew that if I wasn't doing 2.0 trance, I would be happy.
Yeah.
Because I had already done a lot of that. And I knew that it was time for me to do something different, something that was more, more into like the stuff that I was listening to. I knew that whatever was going to come out of that effort, I would be happy with. And that's pretty much what happened. Everything that I did was a concerted effort to not do what John Grant had done prior to that, you know?
Yeah.
So I was already starting with that sort of philosophy of like, anything that I write moving forward isn't going to be, well, actually I do lie, because I did have a track with Philip Castle, which was called Ode to 2.0. Because I told him, hey, this is the last track I'm ever doing like this. So, like this is it. This is like my final 2.0 track. If we ever do something again together, it's not going to be this.
Yeah.
So he was very, very well aware of that. And so, yeah, I think it was easy for me, because I just knew that I wanted to do something different that, felt authentic to me. And when you commit to doing that, it just makes everything easy. And also, like, I don't have a sound that is, that I would say is very niche or stuck in one thing. Like, I tend to bounce around a lot with my, productions, but there is something about them. Yeah, I drift around. There you go. I drift around through genres and styles, but I'm not like, I'm not precious about it being like, oh, it has to be this for it to be John Grant, or it has to be that. Life is short, and I want to do whatever I want to do. And if people like that, they can come along with me for the ride. And if they don't, then there's thousands of other DJs or producers that they can, get their kick out of. But if they want to join me on that journey, that's awesome.
That's amazing. A few more questions because we've been going for a long time already. For the nerd inside of me, what is the plugin that you use the most in the album?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably the utility tool from Ableton, I'd say.
Really, just for volume control or for MIDI stereo
automation
stuff?
No, to be honest, the one that I probably use the most would have to probably be, I like Spire because it's so simple to just like pop up a really simple sound, and I don't use it for any fancy stuff. I use it for bread and butter sounds, but I would say Spire for sure is probably the most used plugin as far as synth instrument. Mm-hmm. And then audio effect wise,
your master chain.
I don't really have a master chain. I just put an invisible limiter on there and call it a day. Really,
you're mixing everything already in the right way.
Yeah, and
using good sounds.
Kai and Albert, they have such an amazing mastering setup that every time I send them a track, it's like, yeah, I want more of that. So I've never been able to replicate it to that level. So
that must piss you off as a sound engineer.
Yes, it does, because I know it's a piece of hardware and he won't tell me what it is.
Okay. Okay, I have to
it's even
scary.
Yeah, it's even worse when it's hardware. It just really hurts because you can't get.
That's what I do. Like I produce my songs, I bounce my stems, and I send it to Tom Parcell.
Oh yeah,
and he's using these insane hardware compressors and limiters, and there's. I mean, you can probably get close, but you won't get there like 100%.
I have like the Neve 542s, the tape emulators, which I like using sometimes on masters, and then I have Shadow Hills dual Van der Graaf, and then
Shadow Hills is beautiful. Yeah,
and then a Dramatic Obsidian, which is like a SSL style glue compressor, which is really, really nice. But sometimes I'm just lazy and I just go for the glue.
Yeah, it's good.
It works. So
hey, if it works, it works.
Exactly.
Last question. You've been doing John Grant for 10 years now. If you would show Drift to John Grant 10 years ago, what do you think? What would John Grant think in 2015 of the album Drift?
He would say that it's lame. Most likely.
This is not for the clubs.
Yeah. He's like, what are you doing? Like, that's not what we signed up for, man. Mm-hmm. I'd probably not have liked it, to be honest. But as time goes by, your tastes change. Your tastes get more mature, or whatever you want to call it. I would have not been ready for it back then because I was much more interested in making harder music, and not that I don't like hard music or whatever, but nowadays I just kind of gravitate more towards percussion and grooves that are a bit slower, and I think melodies as well that are a bit darker here and there. But I don't know. The album also has like a bunch of really happy piano, classic house kind of stuff too. So there's some nod to the rave days, I guess. But yeah, I think back then I was just in a completely different headspace musically, so I don't think we would have gotten that John Grant in this one.
Well, thank you so much for answering all these questions, man. And I'm so happy to hear that we've been an influence in your career.
Massive.
From this radio show.
Literally this show.
I'm really honored to hear those kind of things. So thank you for sharing that today. And let's talk in 10 years.
Let's do it.
And then ask how the John Grant from 2025 would think about the album that you're going to release in 10 years.
Yeah, maybe it'll be a hardstyle album. We'll see.
Who knows? Who knows? Thank you once again for coming by.
Thanks again.
Thank you so much for listening to the last A State of Trance podcast of 2025. I can't believe it. So thank you so much for being here and listening to all these podcasts and to all the insights that we've learned today. I've learned a lot today because I'm going to use that 30-minute rule and see what's going to happen. So thank you so much for that, John. And thank you so much for tuning in. And see you next time for a new one.
Thank you for tuning in. Check all previous episodes on YouTube or your favorite podcast portal.